Take it there, who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air. It's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility.
So a couple things I wanted to highlight today, mostly unrelated, but one thing I've been wanting to talk about for quite a few days now, which is this clip I saw of Tim Dillon tearing into Sam Harris over his position on Israel, which I just think is funny. So I'll play that. And then there's also some interesting protests starting to happen in LA over ICE raids and FBI, ICE, and LAPD collaboration to do these like mass raids and arrests. So some pretty intense unrest broke out in LA on Friday, the 6th of June. So we'll go over that a little bit too. But to start off a little bit light here, I just wanted to play this clip of Tim Dillon just absolutely shredding Sam Harris. And I'm not really sure what exactly got Tim Dillon on, made it so that Sam Harris is on the radar for this. Sam Harris seems to feel that Islam is a unique threat to peace in the world and peace amongst religions. And so in any of these Middle Eastern conflicts, whether it be America and Iraq or Israel versus Gaza, Sam Harris tends to take the view that no aggression towards Muslims and Palestinians, in this case Palestinians, is too aggressive. In other words, because their doctrine is dangerous and because they are so extreme, they pose a threat to the rest of humanity. So, this is essentially the ideology that America used as justification to kill as many people in Iraq and Afghanistan as it possibly could. So it's like, there's really nothing, in some ways, there's nothing controversial about this view of Sam Harris's. This is the view of the establishment, and his goal, if you look at it that way, is to convince as many people as possible that the maximum aggression towards Muslim societies of any kind that is already being employed by the United States or by Israel is justified. So he's not trying to justify greater use of force, usually. Usually he's trying to justify to the public the use of force that is already occurring. So that tends to be where Sam Harris falls on this issue, and it's because he views Islam as a unique threat, more so than Christian nationalism, although he has quibbled about that a million times. So anyway, Tim Dillon is calling him out here because he's saying that essentially to take the sort of spiritual approach to, I guess, secularism is hypocritical in this case with Sam Harris as he argues for bloodshed on behalf of Israel. So let's listen to what Tim Dillon had to say about that.
It's amorphous. It's not left or right. Like, for example, Sam Harris, who's a liberal but critical of Islam and pro-free speech, but not pro-all free speech, who's a very smart guy but kind of hard to pinpoint, who runs a meditation app but also believes that Israel should just bomb anyone at any time that it is hilarious to be a guy who runs a meditation app and he spends half the time telling people about breathing and how to self-actualize, and the other half of the time telling people that we need to bomb as many children as humanly possible until Israel feels comfortable. That's just an interesting archetype of person. It just is. Okay, I want everybody right now to breathe. I want you to breathe in and out. I want you to breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. I want to start from your breath and start from your breathing. What we need to do is indiscriminately bomb women and children. We need to indiscriminately bomb women and children right now. Imagine you're a drone. Feel the freedom of being a drone. Feel the freedom of being a drone. I want you to focus on your breath. Focus on your breath and feel the freedom of being a drone. Where would you fly if you were a drone? Iran? I think you'd fly right to Iran. You'd fly to Iran and eliminate their nuclear capability. You'd do it before you even had the chance to find a diplomatic solution. I want you to breathe. I want you to breathe in and out right now. I want you to imagine an apartment complex. There's children playing soccer outside. Now it's gone. It's gone because there were bad people in it. Now they're all gone. Now it's rubble. And I know it's sad, but it's necessary. Collateral damage. I want you to say 2 words. Collateral damage. Focus on your breathing. Focus on your breathing. Manifest the reality you want to see. Do people from Gaza still live there? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They're gone. Where are they? We don't know. Focus on your breathing. In and out. In and out. It's an interesting archetype of person.
Yeah, so Tim Dillon is one of these Rogan Sphere comedians I've mentioned before. I think he's one of the ones that tends to be funnier. And this is the sort of thing I mean, although this bit isn't that funny, and I kind of hate the fake laughing in the back, whoever that is, whichever of his producers or whatever that's laughing there. That sounds pretty forced. But the bit is funny, the concept is funny, and more so I just think that he's the type of guy who's capable of salient criticisms like this. So even though I don't agree with him on certain things and I tend to distrust him on certain things, it's stuff like this that I hear that makes me feel genuinely entertained by him, especially in this case because he gets it right here. Now, I'm not sure what it is recently that has caused this stripe of comedian, whether it's this guy or Theo Von, to shift to this suddenly bleeding heart, pro-Palestinian perspective. And look, that's the right perspective. I only call it bleeding heart because where was this energy? This has been going on for well over a year now. And the conditions have been virtually the same the entire time. It's escalated and gotten worse. And I guess it's good that during the Trump administration is when these guys have decided to pivot to calling this what it is and saying it's bad. But then in the case of Theo Von, he's still going and doing podcasts with J.D. Vance. And these guys are still consorting with the same exact people that are committing these atrocities of all kinds, not just the genocide in Gaza, but focally that one. And yeah, so it's a good thing that shift is happening. And as I mentioned, when it comes to Theo Von, I think a lot of it is like the algorithms, right? It's like the algorithms that bring you certain things for some reason. Maybe it's because right-wingers or a right-winger like Candace Owens started talking about Palestine, so that started putting more images like that on people's feeds and got some of the horrific images of what's happening in Gaza in front of more people like a Tim Dillon or a Theo Von or people in their sort of networks. Maybe it's that the mainstream news has been showing more images of stuff like that, which I would tie to the fact that Trump is president now. It's like, oh, okay, now it's okay to show what American weapons are doing overseas because now it is on Donald Trump to do something about it. And we've already seen that pretty much no matter what happens, there's no stopping the carnage. So it's okay to use it as points against Donald Trump. So again, whatever, as long as the narrative is shifting towards people being able to call it straight what's happening in Palestine, it's good. But there's definitely cause to be skeptical of these guys. And mainly, I just think that anybody who really lands a solid critique of Sam Harris or somebody in that realm like Douglas Murray. I think Douglas Murray versus Dave Smith is also a big part of why the comedians are suddenly, on the side of Gaza, because Dave Smith went on the Rogan podcast and, argued with Douglas Murray about Gaza, and Dave Smith is like anti-war, so he's taking the anti-war perspective, and then Douglas Murray is condescending him about it, telling him that he doesn't understand, and that rightfully, is an incensing thing for him to say. It upsets people because you're saying, and Tim Dillon has articulated this, that the death of children, the murder of these children is complicated. And you have to stop and think about all the layers of complexity to why these children are being murdered. And that is essentially how the pro-Zionist side of this argument sounds. And I think at this point, it's probably just convenient for comedians to talk about it, so they do it. But for some reason, they're getting the sense that that's the way to be on the right side of history. So that's good. It all feels like too little too late, but I'm here for someone, ripping into Sam Harris relentlessly like this. And, there's not that many people on the left or, outside of this sort of comedian network that can land punches like this. And so, there's probably not too much value to these comedians and what they have to say, and maybe some of their influence is overstated. But I do think that when they get it right, or when they land a really solid, salient point like this, that is something that, until we can find that same type of critical power on the left, where we can really land punches like that, we do have to look to what those guys are doing that works, because not only are they landing solid punches, but people view them as objective and as nonpartisan critical voices, and that also helps their message to spread. So just something to think about. Anyway, in LA on Friday, you had some major unrest over some ICE raids that were scheduled to take place. Apparently, they started in some warehouse, like a clothing warehouse or something like that, and it seems like members of the community essentially got word that this was happening and showed up. And so the raid that they were trying to do at this warehouse became more complicated, and I'm showing you some images of that now, what that raid looked like and what the community response to it looked like as well. And as you can see, you've got the feds, you've got the guys in the full military outfits, you've got all kinds of cop vehicles, and then later they brought out different vehicles like the crowd control, like the big tanks with all types of crazy attachments and whatnot. And then here you see them loading some people into the vans and taking off, and you see how some of the protesters were getting in the way. And then this guy who was being pushed along by the car actually ended up getting ran over, not to the point that he was critically injured, but he was injured. And then the car was able to drive past him. So after this raid ended, which this raid was complicated by the protesters, and ICE had to ask for, I believe it was the FBI that had to ask for LAPD to assist them. So after this raid was interrupted by the protesters, LAPD got involved and started essentially trying to kettle protesters. And here you see a follow-up protest that happened at the detention facility, the main detention facility in downtown Los Angeles. So you have, looks like about 1,000 people who gathered at this detention facility, where some of the unrest continued, and you can see some confrontation by the police here, who were pushing some of the protesters away, and they were doing things like blocking off the highways and that sort of thing. So a lot of disruption happening and a lot of preemptive moves from the police. And then later, this unrest moved to Chinatown, where another raid was planned. So protesters caught wind that a raid was happening in Chinatown after the protest at the detention center, and so people moved there, and that is where you can see some of the immigration forces activities being disrupted and some of the kettling that was being done of protesters in order to try to squash that. Here you see a Waymo car that got caught up in one of the streets being blocked off. So this got pretty intense here, and this happened fast. This was not a planned protest. It's possible that some people knew about this ICE raid ahead of time, like a few days, and so they organized some people, but it doesn't seem like that. It seems like people in the community caught wind of what was happening, in pretty real time showed up, and then that spiraled and snowballed into a larger protest. And then what happened is the people carrying out the operation, the feds, did not expect the response that they got from the community, so they were genuinely disrupted and put onto their back foot, which caused them to ask for help from the city, which is when things got more violent for protesters, as tends to happen. But this is after they were essentially chased out of their original site that they were doing the raid on. And even as you saw this larger militarized force happening in response later, these type of events, what they do is they force the police and the feds and whoever to concentrate their resources in one spot. And it can actually be enormously complicated to do so, because sometimes you have to rapidly transfer as many of your resources as you can across town. For example, in this case, where there's raids happening in one part of town, then there's a larger protest downtown that gets disruptive, then there's another raid happening in Chinatown. So these things move fast, and multiple things happening in one place can make things more chaotic on both ends, but it tends to work in the favor of protesters because police only have so many resources. And as it was described in 2020, when the feds were trying to do research on Antifa to figure out how the ranks of this organization worked, they realized that it wasn't an organization, and the way it works is, in their quotes, and this is in an FBI report, through a maelstrom of willing hands. Meaning there are many people at any given time who, when they receive the signal or when they hear the word that there's something that they can do, they respond to that and they go do it, and that creates an unpredictable effect for police and the feds. So especially when you have activity like that popping up in multiple places at once, and you're responding quickly to what the police and what the feds are doing, and there are networks of information in place that are passing along information in discrete ways, and this stuff is being organized in a way that is not openly available to the feds and other enemies of the cause, then, at least causing genuine pushback to these attempts and letting them know that they can't do these type of operations without serious pushback is very important. And it seems like the reason this is happening is because Stephen Miller is mad that they are not arresting the amount of people that he wants them to be arresting, because even with the amount of overreach that they're doing, going after anybody that they can with, flaws in their paperwork or not, anybody that they can claim as an illegal immigrant or whatever, and rounding them up, even that has not been enough to gather the level of people that Stephen Miller and people like him want to see deported, which is masses and masses of people. So he's telling them, even with the amount of innocent people that have already been deported, etc., he's telling them, you're not arresting enough people. You need to increase the amount of people you're arresting by 5 times. So that leads to these intense raids where they are trying to round up as many people as they possibly can, and they are ramping up the resources that are being allocated to big cities like Los Angeles, which is a sanctuary city. And, the cops are not supposed to be working with the feds in a sanctuary city to arrest immigrants in this fashion. That is not the promise. That's not the promise of the social contract in Los Angeles. So Karen Bass, I believe, has made a statement about this. There have been a couple statements that have been made, but that's not sufficient, and these federal government forces need to be forced out of Los Angeles. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm posting different kinds of exclusive content there, like podcasts that don't make it to the main channel, also music. I've got a new EP out right now called Dead Internet Theory, which is now available on all platforms, and that was available first for members only. I also re-released a previous EP called Spaceman Spliff. That's available now on the main channel with a bonus track included, and that was also available first for members only. So if you're interested in early access to music and other things like that, go ahead and become a member. And if there's other types of content that you'd like to see as exclusive content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.